And this is the final video of painting Anne Boleyn as she walks to the scaffold. As it turns out, this last part is also part number 20, which is weirdly precise and rounded up, like I somehow managed to wrap up an entire oil painting in exactly 20 videos. But anyway, this last part is the finishing touches, and as you can see, I'm doing the final layers on the background buildings and just a few tiny touches to Anne herself. Now for the finale, let's do a quick honorable mention of Anne's quote-unquote life beyond the grave, meaning what happens to her remains and her image. Because as for her image, she has become an absolute cultural icon. And not just in English history, but maybe kind of globally. But as for her actual remains, it's one of those crazy morbid stories about famous corpses, and Anne did not manage to escape that. Although I have to say, her case is far less horrible than, let's say, what happened to Catherine Parr. Now that is a complete circus. But with Anne Boleyn, once she was buried at the altar of St. Peter, that's more or less where she stayed. Although not without disturbance. She was placed there when she died in the 16th century, and fast forward 3 centuries into the Victorian era, when they had to renovate the church where she was buried, since it was too dilapidated. And so they start digging up all the graves at the altar, and they find Anne. However, she's just a pile of bones shuffled off to the side of the grave, and on top of her had been placed some other woman, buried sometime in the 17th century I think it was. So it was kind of a mess, as you'd expect it to be after a third of a millennium. But they still did find Anne's body, and of course there's a dispute as to whether it really was her, but I think it's safe to say it was her. And then after she was found, she spent like a few days outside of the grave so that coroners can examine her and whatnot, after which she was reburied in her original resting place, this time enclosed in concrete so that nobody can ever disturb her again. And there Anne Boleyn remains to this day. May she keep resting there in peace. And thanks for coming along with me on this painting journey.